So welcome everybody. Happy Friday and Halloween Eve. So we got some special guests here today. Actually, a few. We have Jill Thompson, creative of Scary Godmother, and we have Zeke Norton, who directed both the Scary specials, and we have a few guests as well. We have actually Corey Barnard here too, joining in on the fun, who was, I believe, animation director on the show.
Animation supervisor, yes.
There you go. So yeah, I'll let you guys take it away, and other people who were on the cruise back in the day can chip in as well, and we'll just have some fun. Take it away, Jill, if you want.
Well, I'm going to be carving a pumpkin while we do this because of COVID, I have been very lax in my pumpkin carving, and I usually have so many pumpkins on my stairs lit up with light bulbs, so the fire never goes out at night. But this year I just have plastic ones, and I feel like it's kind of sacrilege to not have any real pumpkins, so I'm going to carve one while we talk.
Well, that's appropriate. We asked you to make so many jack-o'-lanterns, like to paint so many jack-o'-lanterns for the specials, because we would use them as not only backgrounds in like the pumpkin patch and on people's doorsteps and stuff in the neighborhood, but we also use them as graphics on backgrounds for like the dancing sequences and other abstract stuff and sequences like the cooking show and so forth. And so Jill, who's amazing at drawing pumpkins and all other sorts of spooky things.
Well, this month it's reminded me of that this month, because every day this month I've been painting one jack-o'-lantern and posting it on my Instagram. My cat Oberon's going to come up here because he actually loves to eat pumpkin. So while I carve pumpkins, he's going to come and lick this pumpkin while I do this. I know, here he comes.
There you go. He's your helper.
He's my helper. Watch out, dude. This is a drywall saw. It will cut you.
But one of the awesome things about doing the specials was having Jill provide so much art to us, which we use both as reference and as actual backgrounds in the show. So like I still got a bunch of the original artwork. So for example, we'd ask Jill to paint paint up some backgrounds. For example, this is one view of Scary Godmother's kitchen from one angle, and
all the walls, like,
yeah,
two at a time. So if you were looking this way, you'd see what's that way, so you would know what's all around. Dude, be careful.
And in today's like animation, often in 3D, often you would get something like this from your art director, and then modeling would build it. But we didn't have the time, and on the first special, a lot of the time to fill out every particular environment, and so often we would just use this as a 2D background, as if we were making 2D cartoons.
I've always found it like really fascinating. There was a time when I would get videotapes. This is how, like, I wasn't on site or whatever all the time when we made this. I was lucky enough to come a few times.
So for whoever's watching this, the specials were made at Mainframe in Vancouver, and Jill lives and works at her studio in Chicago. So,
and this of course was well before the internet being the way it is now. I think I had a small laptop. That was my only computer at the time. It might have had like 20 gigabytes on it or something like that. Like, I think about that all the time. I probably still have it here because, again, I don't throw anything away, but I'm not well organized, so it's probably around here. And so I would call Zeke, because they would send me, you're gonna get cut. They would send me videotapes of their progress. So we had storyboards and notes, and I would fax things through it, like sketch on stuff and fax drawings to Zeke about, like, I want it to look like this. In fact, I think I do have some of that here. I have something of like Bugaboo's nose. Like a note about how it looks. It wasn't flat. Yeah, that's it. And I guess maybe there had been like a test or a 3D model of him. So it's like, his nose looks like this, and it's like carved out into this shape. And I would write all these notes all over things with like usually a little cartoon of myself saying stuff and fax it to Zeke, and then he would tell the animators or the modelers. And I always find, I mean, my brain learns visually, so if I have an example of something, it's easier for me to understand what's going on. And so I would get videotapes of all the progress of everything that they were doing, and then I would watch it and take down timestamps and write notes about if I wanted a beat added or make the expressions go bigger. And one of the things I remember is all of the videos were in so many different stages. Like some were just storyboards, some were like wireframed apertures of things, and then some things were blam, fully rendered. And one of the first things that was fully rendered was the Scary Godmother's house, when we zoom back in to see the exterior of her house. And they had, you guys had used my paintings to wrap the structure, and it looked like I painted it, but it looked 3D, and it blew my mind and it made me cry. So, so what kind of things were you pioneering? Like I mean, I didn't know. Oh shoot, I need a bowl to put these in.
Well, this is a little inside baseball, but Corey, do you remember that Scary Godmother was the first project at Mainframe where we tracked the shots? So
really?
And this would have been 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
I think it came out in 2003. And so from 1993 to 2001, say, none of the shows at Mainframe had any like paper trail or visual representation or like any notation of how many shots were in a show, what those shots were, who was working on those shots. It was all very like piecemeal. We would kind of like put it together and figure it out in the edit. And I remember Corey was like, what if we knew like how many shots there were and like how long each shot was taking? And so we took a big whiteboard and put like painter's tape on it and just separated it into a giant Excel sheet, like a physical Excel sheet that took up the whole wall. And in dry erase, just started, shot 1, establishing shot of the neighborhood. Kids are walking in Halloween trick-or-treating costumes. Shot 2, Hannah jumps over a gravestone and joins the crew. And now it was really efficient. We were working with a skeleton crew, pun intended, and we needed to like figure out a system that was going to be a little more efficient than what we had been doing. And now there's a whole software industry around that. The leading software is called Shotgun, and it tracks everything. But back in the day, we were like, maybe we'll just write it down on the wall.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, I remember doing that because normally the edit is the master, and it was very easy to track. But with our transient crew and the new software and so many other variables, we couldn't do that. It was a risk of missing very, very important deadlines. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. I have to go get a bowl for these seeds. Don't eat that pumpkin while I'm gone. Sorry, I forgot.
We'll snitch on
I'll talk
Oberon
loudly in the other room.
if you do.
So while Jill is gone for a second, who else is on the call from the original crew right now?
I was one of the animators on the original crew in the suite. I forget what the suite was, but it was the small suite, and I think there was, like you said, 12 or 13 of us, and it was, it was a lot of fun.
Do you remember animating any shots?
Oh yeah, I remember. I think I wasn't on for the full length of the show, but I think I animated about while I was there about 10 or 15 shots or so.
Yeah. Do you remember any of them?
I remember the introduction where Scary Godmother comes down the chimney. And it gets kind of like deformed. We were using last. It was the first. Was it the first show with XSI as well?
Yeah, that
It
was the
was.
kind of the point of it.
Yeah. So
Internally, we were testing XSI.
yeah,
Can
it
you
was.
explain to me what XSI is for those of us who?
It's just the animation software. Like today, the standard is Maya, but at that
Oh,
point,
I
it
remember
was.
when you guys switched over to Maya.
We were on Maya by the second special, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that term, and you were talking about like switching over to that, but I didn't know that there was something with like I didn't know anything about the XSI.
Yeah, it was like XSI was. It was a great software. It felt like it was designed by animators for animators. It was had a great interface and very super intuitive. Amazing tools and that, but it just wasn't the standard. It was like, back in the day, beta and VHS took over. So if anyone remembers that.
Does it make it so it for someone who my brain does not process computer stuff really easily, but I do know, like, is it Mac versus PC as far, I don't understand how I have so many friends who say, oh, Windows, it's so easy. And I have never wanted to throw computers out the window more than when I have to work in any kind of Windows interface. It just is cold and horrible. And since Steve Jobs died, I find that all of my Mac updates are so much more Windowsy. I guess it's because you want to make everything work together. But there have been many times I've just wanted to fling my computer out the window again. It's like, why are you doing this to me? And if there's an animation program that worked like that, it seems like everything should just be like click, drop, click, drop.
I think XSI was a lot like that. Like XSI was a little bit less access, like for coding and whatnot. I think that's one of the reasons why Maya gained traction, was that you could do many things in different ways, and it was kind of a bit more open, I think, for programmers and that.
Oh, Ron.
And then technically, a few of the things that we wanted to try with the Scary Godmother that would benefit the first special that would benefit the studio software-wise was to try out hair and fur, because that was a new technology at the time and hadn't been. I don't think Mainframe had done it on any other projects to date. And so Scary's hair obviously was a big challenge.
Yeah.
And previously, like all of our other shows, like the Reboot and Transformers Beast Wars, I mean, the Beast Wars characters were furry characters, but we didn't have fur. It was just textures. They looked more like the plastic toys than they did like real animals. And on the original Reboot, we designed all of our characters' hair to be computery, and so Dot would have like plastic hair, and Bob had chrome dreadlocks, and so forth. And so all the characters had hair like that was a solid mass. And so for Scary Godmother, she has big frizzy red hair, and so we spent a lot of time figuring that out. Yeah, and also Harry was furry.
Yeah. So in the scope of that type of technology, like, what is Merida's hair in Brave?
Yeah, that was a huge step forward, and that's often how Pixar treated their shorts, is that they would pioneer technology through a short and then propagate that into a feature. And so when we all saw Brave, and I think How to Train Your Dragon with Olaf's beard, or not Olaf, what's the dad's name in How to Train Your Dragon? Anyway, with giant curly red Scottish hair. It's like you get really jealous when you're working at a TV studio and then you see a film studio pour millions and millions of dollars into making
hair.
one beard, making one head of hair. Yeah.
I think there was it wasn't like somebody mentioned at the time, maybe it was you, Zeke, or someone else who knew how much our special cost versus other things, and they were like, we spent as much on the special as they did on like some of the hair on Stuart Little or something like that to make that fur look real. I was like, to put it in perspective.
Yeah, no, exactly. The budget for the specials was quite small compared to anything that people were seeing at the time.
But obviously, but what I'm saying is like I had no idea how expensive just the creation of one type of thing.
Of any particular thing, and that's always the challenge with explaining CG production to to people from other fields, be it live action or cartoons or art or writing or whatever, especially writing, is the things that take more time than other things. Some things that you would think would be hard and expensive aren't, and some things that you think would be easy are hard and expensive. So,
well, it's the same thing with drawing. I mean, I think when I was teaching, I have students who are so terrified of working analog because they feel like I can't make a mistake. How do I undo it? I said, well, that's called an eraser, and you get to do it by hand. It's fine. I have an undo tool. Like, there's no way that you don't have an undo tool with, regular drawing. It's just, it doesn't, it's not on a layer where you can go back to it. It's like you have to make some conscious choices. And then people are always, they're always amazed how long things take. So the same thing, I remember one scene, the dancing scene, or the party scene where you zoom in and you see all the characters the first time interacting at the party, and there's all the characters in there and the inside is rendering. And then you were telling me how long, you set everything up and then it renders, and that it was taking like more than a day for it to do that, So sometimes what I do takes, usually it takes me on average about 12 to 14 hours to finish a page of comics that are painted, and people think that it just appears, and I don't know if it's because of digital stuff that they think that, but even before that, they just think it just magically happens and gets filled in and stuff like that. So
do you want to talk about why you put Pettibone in clothes? It's a similar thing, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because the rib cage is a pain in the ass to draw. Oh, sorry, can I say that? But to draw, and especially if you have to draw it, if you want to draw it correctly. I mean, I know why people take shortcuts on fingers in animation. They want to do 3 fingers, which always seemed weird to me because it always takes me as long to draw a 3-fingered Simpsons hand than it does a 4-fingered hand. But I guess if I'm not doing it thousands of times, it would seem less. But to draw the rib cage, when I was in school, one of the worst life drawing projects that they had was they set up a skeleton in the life drawing room, and it was lit from a certain angle, and everyone sat in a semicircle around it, and you had to draw that skeleton. Now, of course, you can see what's in front of you, but because you can see through the ribs, you can see his spine, and you can see inside the ribs on the other side, and it was always so difficult to draw that if you have to draw it over and over and over again, it becomes incredibly tedious. And the same way drawing a superhero costume that George Perez has designed usually will make you want to tear your hair out, because, well, George can draw like a flamenco ruffled sleeve on a character. That gets old over after a while. So Mr. Pettibone usually has a coat, because he's a snappy dresser, but also so I won't have to draw his rib cage a million times. And
when did you discover that? And did you ever consider that
proper amount of ribs in there either?
Did you ever consider that that he would make less appearances, or that you would be like, well, maybe I shouldn't have made him a skeleton?
No, because his personality is based on my friend Rick's late husband, and he was a flamboyant party gentleman who was a wonderful Southern guy. He had a great accent, and I wanted Mr. Pettibone to reflect that type of thing. So I knew he was going to be in there, but it wasn't until I started drawing the comics, in the first book, he appears once,
Right.
he pops in the closet, he does bone dance, blah, blah, blah. It's still, and I only did it once, and then they move on to the next spooky thing. And so it wasn't an issue, but when I started drawing him in the comic, it was easier to put clothes on him. And I knew he was going to start playing a very important role in the Scary Godmother world. Oh, I'm pumping on my boobs.
And so conversely for us, back in the day, having him naked, having him as a skeleton was easier than having clothes on him, because cloth takes processing power. And it's, today it's a lot easier and simpler, and there's more solutions for cloth. But early on in computer animation, animating cloth that follows your character around and looks natural is really hard. And so something that was easier for you to draw was harder for us to animate.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I wonder how many other translations work that way. Because I do know, nobody likes to draw folds, but now that I think about all the kids' clothing, it looks like their arms and legs, more or less. And thankfully, most of the characters are wearing costumes, so it's supposed to look like that. Katie, is wearing a leotard. Jimmy's got sweatshirt on, but that doesn't have to be real floopy and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. I did not know that. So has anybody been on TikTok lately and seen so many of the great duets and I don't even know what they call them, just like kids dressing up? And by kids, I mean anywhere from actual kids to people in their 20s, obviously. So dressing up as characters from the show and having it playing in the background and then doing like lip syncing to it. It's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
So
isn't it crazy that TikTok is rife with Scary Godmother memes and dances and costumes right now?
Yeah. I mean, before, like my students used to tell me, Jill, don't you ever Google yourself, or not Google yourself, but like hashtag yourself on Tumblr? So this was obviously a while ago. And I was like, why would I? Or they said, oh, you should do that for Scary Godmother. There's so much stuff up there. And then I found all of these people that would dress up or they would do fan art and that I never had seen before. I get a lot of people when I have my banner, and it's like, if it was easier to ship around, I would totally ship this Bugaboo head with me. There used to be a whole costume of him. This was from the play that we did that Scary Godmother show is based on. Two fans of mine from California had worn this in San Diego Comic-Con costume contest one year. So they were Scary Godmother and Bugaboo, and they won for like best fantasy costume. When we were doing the play, they offered to let us have the costume. The rest of his body, unfortunately, got damaged just a couple of years ago in a unfortunate water incident in my basement. So I managed to save the head, and I want to make the rest of him.
So that costume is older than the play? The costume came before the play?
The costume came before the play.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
Cool.
And what's cool about this is there are no eye holes in this. So when we did the play, like the show, our TV show that's based on the play was an hour-long children's play that we did here in Chicago at the Athenaeum Theater. We did 26 performances of it. And Patrick, the guy that was usually playing Bugaboo, the director of that play and the co-writer of Scary Godmother TV show, Heath Corson, understudied every once in a while if Patrick was unable to do it. But there's no eye holes in this costume. So the top of this, it's like foam, but it's wedged on top of like a baseball hat. They built it around a baseball hat so you can sit it on your head, and then the head will turn and it will move back and forth. But when Mark Davis was wearing this at San Diego, his wife was being Scary Godmother, and she would just lead him around by the hand through the crowd and get it where they needed to go, right? So on stage, everything had to be done. They had to mark all of Bugaboo's foot placements on stage because he'd be, the head would be facing out, but everyone would be looking down at their feet to see. So
you could see his feet a little bit.
Yeah, because it's big around, and then there's a little bit of mesh that comes out, and you put the other part of the costume on, pulls up and over, and it had these big arms and legs that were all one piece. So it was like this big pajama, like big poofy pajama thing with like fur and a tail that had a wire in it, so it would like move around. And we had 2 dance numbers in that play, and and the fact that never did Patrick or Heath knock into something, fall down, or miss their mark by never being able to see out into the audience or out and to see what else was around them on the stage was pretty incredible. So
I think we missed an opportunity to have the Gary Chalk, the voice actor for the specials, wear that costume while he was recording Bugaboo.
I probably could have brought that on the plane back then.
Just sit in an extra seat of a Bugaboo costume sitting next to you.
Yep.
That was something we did also on the specials to save a bit of cash. Was we doubled up on the voice actors, or like the voice actors played each voice actor played 2 characters for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I remember Gary Chalk played Bugaboo and Harry.
Yes.
And
Scott
then McNeil played Count Max and Pettibone.
Pettibone. And then Tabitha played Ruby and Scary Godmother.
Yeah.
Right. The funny thing was, every time that people auditioned for Scary Godmother, and it was for the play as well as for the show, everyone always wants to do. Everyone was trying to do the "Well, my pretty," like this Wicked Witch type of voice, and I was like, oh my gosh, no. And then I heard Tabitha's voice, and I was like, she sounds like you. She doesn't sound like a creepy witch or has a spooky voice or even like a Morticia Addams style voice. She's just a little bit wackier than your regular sounding voice. She's very enthusiastic and
she's full of energy,
bubble-headed,
which makes her great for but that's what makes her great for animation.
Because she's bubbly.
Yeah, the personality, full of energy, enthusiastic, and so forth. And so the animators had a great time working off of Tabitha's voice because she put so much behind it. That's what you want in an animated character, unless you're going for something like a joke where, like a vampire or something, doesn't move very much. But
and then it made
Scary's all over the place.
The transition for Ruby.
Yeah.
And that was the best part, was to see when sometimes the characters would be talking to each other, but it was the same person, to see them at the voice record, because that's the thing that you don't get to see. And I really wish we would have recorded it, is them acting the parts out as they do the lines. It's like, well, Scary Godmother, and he was being Max, or you have to be big and gregarious, and you kind of do big open motions when Gary was being Bugaboo, and then he would have to then be Harry, and you'd then kind of puff up his chest and be all trolly about things. It was hard. Harry was always a hard character to try and explain how he sounds, because he's blustery and arrogant, but he's and a know-it-all, but he has this affect, because it's a weird thing that like a lot of Harry's comic book and collecting personality and tics have come from very ardent fans that I have met throughout the years that are collectors of things, and they have a certain manner of speaking. And there's like a couple of fans that I've really kind of based his speech pattern on, And I don't think that the person would find it offensive, because at one point I was talking about in a different interview about their predilection for more creepy fan art drawings. And by creepy, I mean, I love my female characters a little bit too much, right? But the way that he would speak, I was trying to talk around it in an interview, because I felt like, I wouldn't want to embarrass this dude, because why would you want anybody to know that this is the thing that you're interested in? And he, the next convention I saw him at, he came up to me and he was really mad that I didn't name check him. And I was like, all right, dude, next time I talk about your pervy art, I will totally talk about you. So except for that part, I took a lot of those affectations for Harry, but not the creepiest part.
Exactly. One of the luxurious things that we used to do on Mainframe shows, and we got to do on both of the Scary Godmother specials, is that we had all of the actors in the same sound booth in the same room at the same time and recording, and that often doesn't happen these days. And the more money you have, the less that happens. So on feature films, especially if you're casting celebrities who are not, whose time is limited and they may be in all over different cities and so forth. We have a huge pool of talented yet mostly unknown voice actors in Vancouver, and so we cast kind of mostly our regulars that we've been working with on other shows. And we were in the habit of putting all of our actors in the same room, and which is amazing. It makes for not only a really fun and silly voice record where there's all this camaraderie and everyone working on the same project together at the same time, as if you were putting on a show or you were shooting a movie. But to me anyway, the performances end up being better because you're playing off of other people in the room. It's harder, or it's a different skill maybe, for actors to just sit in a booth by themselves and put their full character on without getting another professional actor, because often it'll be like the director or an assistant or somebody just reading the other person's lines off a page. So I think we were lucky, and maybe didn't know how lucky we were, because the industry is mostly not that way anymore. Mostly actors recording by themselves.
Wow, I'm really glad we got that, because I thought that was how it's always done. Because it seems, I've seen other film clips of famous people recording stuff for bigger budget movies, and they're always focused on that one person. But I assumed that
was somebody else outside of frame.
Yeah, well, that wasn't necessarily the whole thing, because now I know I probably go to some of that stuff, because it just seems a little bit, it seems corny every once in a while, if they're doing something that's supposed to be comedic, because obviously the characters aren't in the room together.
Anna Kendrick and Hugh Jackman aren't in the same room together if they're both playing trolls or whatever.
See, now I have an improv background, and I play really well off of other people. I have no problem going to a convention and getting up in front of a room full of 1,000 people, which was really cool, to show this film. Do you remember that?
We should talk about that. That was the most amazing experience of the.
But I had nothing prepped, and I can wing it much better than I can just do something myself. I had to do a Zoom awards thing the other night, and it was so hard to just play to nothing, because they would even take away the other Zoom people, and they just had the background, and it was just me seeing myself, and then I had to, wing reading some awards being given out, so nominees and stuff, and they wanted it to get back on schedule because other people had read things really fast and they wanted it to go longer. And I'm like, well, I'm a person that usually can never shut up and makes everybody's podcast be like, this is our first 3-hour podcast, Jill. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Because rambling and tangents and telling stories and all sorts of things. But I mean, the cat didn't even come up to bother me because I was like, if the cat was sitting there, it reminds me of the scene in Coal Miner's Daughter where Loretta Lynn's husband brings out, she can't play really well, to like the empty studio with just a musician. So he goes and grabs her kids and puts them on the other side of the room and goes, sing to the babies, Loretta. And I'm like, I don't even have no babies to sing to right now. I've got to just do this. I'm assuming that being in a room with other people to get response from, whether it's the director or other actors, would be much more beneficial. You know, maybe not even doing them all at the same time, but, you know, a couple at a time. If you're already spending millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, how could it, well, now you can't, but
now everybody's good at, voice actors have to record from home, basically.
Yeah, but I would think that now, I mean, it goes back to the TikTok thing I just said. Why can't they do a duet of it, you know? It's like, now they can do it, set up their own little booth, see the other person with their own little booth, just to have something to play off of. I know everybody that has to do all the editing are like, shut up, Jill, this is so much more work than anyone would ever want to do. Don't give anybody any ideas. That would be horrible and awful.
The only trick for editing and when you have everybody in the same room is actors love to talk over each other when they get excited, and so you have that's the constant direction, is being like, you can jump on their line, but leave like a half a second in between before you say anything, so that we can actually like.
Oh, that is one thing.
Get in there with our scissors, right?
I remember that from the record. That's one thing I learned when we were doing that, is there has to be enough room. Like, things needed to be a little slower so you can sync up the animation to it.
Yeah.
Especially in between when characters are talking.
Yeah, because we would never usually take just the exact length of time that or like the exact recording of a few seconds or like a 30 seconds or a minute of characters acting off of each other or actors acting off each other. We would take that audio, bring it into the edit, and then like slice it up a little bit here and there. And of course it would depend on what person was on camera at any given time, and all sorts of factors. So we couldn't usually just animate to the raw audio.
Hey, Zeke, do you want to jump back to that screening you were going to talk about?
Yes. So when we finished the first special, we premiered it at Comic-Con 2003, I believe. So that would have been the summer of 2003. And I had a
festival in Chicago.
Well, I think. Anyway, you and I went and showed it to a bunch of people, like to a big room. We had one of the big halls.
That was like, that was a room of, I think, at least 1,000 people.
Yeah, and I had never been to Comic-Con, and I was a lifelong comic nerd, and of course Jill goes every year, and a lot of creators, comic creators and artists and so forth, will have a booth, and they've got like artists row in one section, and then a lot of the corporate and stuff is in another section. But Jill is basically her own walking booth.
Oh, what?
Your own walking booth, and so you would walk around the floor, right? and people would stop you, and you would like sign stuff or whatever. And I was like, sort of tagging along with you, and we'd be in this big crowd. You'd be getting stopped every 2 seconds because people knew your comics and so forth, and wanted to talk or get autographs and so forth. And so I was like a celebrity by proxy, because I was like riding off of your coattails, which is super awesome. And I was like everyone here loves comics like I do. And back in, it wasn't quite as it was, comics were a little more niche back then, pre-Marvel movies. So you get thousands and thousands of people who are all into the same thing as you are at the time was pretty special.
Yeah, it's always a big rush, and I mean, especially now when I put things up, where's my book? Where did I put my book? Okay, so here, these are like all the Scary Godmother things that are out right now. Like everything I ever did, Dark Horse has, up until now, Dark Horse has compiled in this great big omnibus. And a lot of people who are older know Scary Godmother, or because they're comic fans, but so many people have grown up watching our special or our specials, and that's the only thing they know it from. So now when I'm at a comic convention, what I usually get, I get the people that know me and the people that have already known me, but then there are kids who, I have my banner that has Scary Godmother and Bugaboo on it, and then I usually have, you know, a bunch of stuff around, but I'll hear suddenly, I'll be like, oh my God, that's my childhood, why is my childhood here? What is that? What is this? And I'll be like, hi, do you know about Scary Godmother? And they're like, I love this movie. And if it's a group of 5 people, because this sometimes happens, if it's a group of 2 people, most of the time, both of the people will know it. And we can all feel incredibly proud that we have made young people cry because they love this show so much. And so people will come up, but apparently because there were people that just watched Cartoon Network when they were growing up, and then other people that just watched like the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon or whatever, you'll have 2 people who are freaking out and even crying at times. I've had girls cry and shake because they've come up and they realize what it is, and then I'm like, did you know it came from books? And they're like, oh my God, no. And they kind of freak out. And then there are other friends that they're with will go, what is wrong with you? Like, what is this? I've never seen this before. And they're like, how could you not know what this is? And then finally, like the person that was helping me work my booth started to like keep track of every time she heard, oh my God, that was my childhood. And one weekend we chalked it up. There were over like 600 people that came over and freaked out just by randomly walking by. And which was really amazing, but then a lot of times the other ones wouldn't know. And then I was like, well, why don't you guys go home and introduce each other to the things that you watched, and then you'll know. Because that's what you get when you don't have just 3 channels, like when I was growing up. When you have a dedicated channel you watch all the time, there's all this content that you've never seen before. So I'm hoping that the fact that this will be on later today on Crave, that a whole new generation of kids will suddenly be introduced to it.
Yeah, for sure. And that same convention that we went to in 2003, where you were the celebrity of the convention, we had rented out one of the big halls and we premiered the show, and then we packed it, and it was I remember it was you and me and Kevin Gamble, who was one of the producers on the show, sat up on one of those classic Comic-Con tables, and and showed it to the people who basically were fans of the book, because obviously at that time there was no animation, and so we had kept the production of the show, I think, pretty close to our chest until that year, and then sprung it on all the comic fans at the convention.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, is for so long it didn't seem real. You know, yes, I knew I had an option. Yes, we were working for months and months and months and months on this production. Yes, I flew to Vancouver and worked on the voice record. Yes, we did, you know, more than once, you know, came out there, and I would get my videotapes, and I somewhere in a storage space, I've got the stack of them, because I wouldn't want to throw out history, right? Even though I don't have any way to play it. But until I saw it on TV, even there, you know, it's like, oh, here's a thing that we made, and you all get to see it now. And then when we put it in that film festival that was here in Chicago, it was like an animation film festival, I got to go there and do a talk afterwards, a Q&A after they showed it, and had people over to my house to see it, or to have a party afterwards. And it still was a thing that was like, okay, it's just here. But until it was on television and there were commercials in it, which, you know, always ruins something because there's a commercial break.
Yeah.
But so I would dress up as Scary Godmother for Halloween, and then it would be on Cartoon Network on Halloween night, and kids would come to the door, and I give out full-size candy bars, and I would keep the sound down, but then I would play like spooky music out the window. So in between kids to come in and see my show on real TV with, you know, commercials for like fruit by the foot or yogurt or whatever the heck it is that made it real. when it should have felt real at San Diego Comic-Con or at the film festival, or even just when we finally had the completed show. We went, I mean, I think I was up in Vancouver for when everything was kind of almost completely edited. Because I remember sitting in like a little studio and us watching it.
Yeah, we were doing the sound mix.
Yeah, so for the sound mix, but it's weird that it didn't feel real until it was on TV. And then now when people come up to me and talk about how much they love it, that even makes it more real, because then I know I just didn't imagine it for myself. I didn't hallucinate all of you who worked on it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing when you have your head down on a project for a long time and then release it to the world, and for years and years later, and to this day, you've affected people.
What's really cool is that I do have people who saw the play here in Chicago and then saw the show, so they've kind of grown up through it. And all of my nieces went to the play, so I have pictures of them. When my niece Hannah met the real Scary Godmother, or the play Scary Godmother, it was one of those, like make you cry, give me the feels, right? She runs up to her, because all the girls were dressed up, because I encouraged all the people in the audience to dress in costume when they came, and I always had treats for everyone. And like on the way out, there was a basket of candy, so everyone got to take candy and treats and stuff. And so this was the weekend that all of my nieces had come, and Renee, who was playing Scary Godmother, man, she was good. Like Hannah ran out of the audience and down after the show, and she runs up and she just hugs her immediately. And she said, "Scary Godmother, it's me, Hannah. Do you remember me?" Like that. This, like, I made something about memories that, and for the longest time, Hannah said she thought I made the book about memories that she just didn't remember so much, like things that happened to her when she was littler. And I was like, How much littler can you get? You're like 4. So
yeah. Oh, you could totally do that to any kid. That's so cool, because obviously, but up to a certain age, you don't really remember memories. And your parents tell you, "Yeah, we went on this trip, or we did that thing, and yeah, you had this adventure with Scary Godmother, and I wrote a book about it."
Yeah. And what else? And I remember the first time we screened this show. It's like for all the kids. They were scared, like Hannah. Like that was the coolest thing to watch. The story that we told, they lived while watching it. So they were afraid when she was afraid. And as she started, in fact, one kid was so scared, because we were just down, like in somebody's rec room, with the couch, the nice couch with the big TV screen, and there was popcorn and everything. But when we turned out the lights, it got dark in the basement, and suddenly all the kids got scared. And this little boy was like, he started to cry. He wanted to leave, and his mom convinced him to just hang in there, just watch. She would hold on to him, and then he would ask questions. He was like, she's scared like me. And I was like, that's right, she's scared like you. And then suddenly he was like, hey, he's not so bad, or that's kind of funny, or it's like, that monster he's a nice guy, or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, the story is not just something they watch, it's something that they're feeling right now. So I feel like
it's the kind of thing you don't get with your books. Like you don't sit with a reader and watch over their shoulder, sort of watch their face and see how they're reacting.
Right. And this, you got to see them react in real time. I also remember at the play, the same thing would happen. The house lights would go out, and kids would get scared right away. And there was one, actually, there was 1 week. The one week I wasn't there. Oh, no, I was there for one of these performances, because I would go to all the performances. We would do a performance a Friday night, a Saturday night, and then a Sunday matinee. And I was at a convention for one of those, and it was, so we have a video recording, and a very bad videographer, I have to say, if I was there. The one time he was videoing was when I was out of town for a convention. So the dude, like, they do, this is me griping about this. We have the big stage production, right? So all the characters are choreographed dancing to this fun thing, and it's really amazing, and Bugaboo's dancing, and it's really cool, but then Harry runs off during it and eats all the buffet, right? So instead of like being a wide, like, I expected the entire thing would be the way I would see it, which was from up in the booth all the time. I just wanted a complete version of the play, like you'd see the entire thing the way you could see it if you were in the audience. The guy that was doing the videographing, they're dancing, and he pans over and he just focuses and zooms in on Harry eating. So you can hear all this music happening and feet going and like people laughing because there's dancing happening. And he's focused on Harry, and it drives me crazy every time I watch back the play, because it's like, I can't go back and fix it. The play's over. It's like, and it's like,
And I remember that when we were animating the dancing, we were like, "Hey, Jill, do you have any footage of the dance from the play?" She was like, "No, you're gonna have." We're like, "Okay, well, I guess we'll just make it up."
yeah. Oh my God. It's, you know, the dance around, the vampires dance. There's great footwork. I mean, we brought in someone who choreographed dancing. It wasn't that we just like, let's wing it. We had a choreographer. And then the guy was like, "Hey, let's go watch the werewolf eat something in the corner." It's like, you're giving away the joke, man. It's like, you're supposed to be focused over here. A little something's happening there. He's laying there at the end. It's like, oh my gosh. However, the guy Keith, who played Harry, even though he was a diminutive little fellow and we didn't even have him stuffed with pillows or anything to make him fat. His voice and his characterization of Harry was something that I definitely tried to tell Gary to mimic. I don't know if we had him listen to that maybe once or twice, but just so he figured out like how bombastic he was, because he was awesome. Everybody in the play was great. Everybody who did the voices in the show were amazing. I can't believe how lucky I was in every single production that we've made of her.
I think we based the dancing off of Peanuts, the classic Peanuts specials, because we had talked about that as one of the inspirations for for your original scary stories. And
really?
So yeah.
Because I know that there was a video clip of some Indian dancing, and I mean this as in India. There was something that you also said you used as inspiration.
Yeah, a big hodgepodge. And the other thing we took from was the dance sequence, or the dream sequence in The Big Lebowski, with all the bowling balls and everything. So at one point, Harry shuffles down the stairs like the dude does at the beginning of that.
I did not know that. That's a new one for me. Yeah. Any production of Scary Godmother that would ever go forward, there always will have to be dancing. There needs to be dancing. I like music.
And something we did in the second special. I can't remember. Did we do it?
Or even just like, you know, one of those old 1960s, 70s Scooby-Doo montages where there's a song and then they're all running around, monsters are chasing them and opening up doors, zoinks, and that's necessary for all of my Halloween shows.
And we took the idea of the treats section or the crafting section that you do in your comics and put that in the second one. And I remember you did this as the title card for the treats section of the special.
I animated a marshmallow and the graham cracker, all the different components, so you guys could do like flash style animation on there.
Exactly. If I have that one, but I have this one where we have each little element.
Yeah. There's also so anything that you might need that we had referenced in there every once in a while. So the pizzas from Diablo Brothers, the action figure from the comic Harry likes, his Day of the Dead, El Muerto. And
Yep. Look, I've got an original FedEx package
get out! Oh my god!
to me from at Mainframe. Oh yeah, and here we go. Here
Oh, I thought it was.
are all the chocolate bars
Oh, okay, yay!
and the sucker. And we've got what I think were these the comic book covers?
Those are the comic covers for
from
Harry.
Harry?
Yeah. Because when he says that Harry looks like the girl from the actress that plays Miss Crystal on the Spectral Six, he pulls up the comics.
Yeah. And here's all like the little separate elements for the treat section because we did that bit in 2D.
Well, that was all the food for the party in case you like showed the buffet.
Yeah.
So I did all these different elements that someone would have to build, and
this was such a ghetto production in terms of like us in terms of the art and putting it all on you. Like normally just so you know, normally a show has like an art team that the art director assigns these things to. So some junior artist on the team would be doing this, and then you would be the art director. You would be looking over it.
Oh really? Oh okay, that's interesting. Because I would expect to do that on any show I was working on at this point, because like I don't know, it has to look like what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I guess I would have to relinquish some control. Oh my god.
Well, I mean, we took advantage of you. We worked you to the bone, and I don't know if you got anything else done that year.
I actually was working on comics at the same time. I can't say that I wasn't stressed out a lot, but I was doing both things. I'm trying to think. I may have been working on the storybook and or Death at Death's Door. So I mean.
Well, I remember you were working on Death at Death's Door in Vancouver, between voice record, or like we'd be at the voice record, and then at lunch or whatever, sometimes you would go and draw a little bit on that. On one of those pages.
But that was usually like par for my course back then when I was a much more prolific artist.
Do you remember what this is? This is like.
That's Bugaboo's list of who's good, and like he's checking off the kids. So it's like who
he's supposed to scare?
Yeah. So remember when he goes, is that the same Jimmy that's on my list? And he pulls up, and there's Jimmy in the middle. So I made other kids, and I think if I'm looking at it right, it's either some of my nieces or some of my friends' kids at the time. Right. So I wanted to make sure there were all sorts of kids who would get name checked if they like paused the television and got to look.
So on Thursday, Bugaboo scared all these kids.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's like a different route. Is that kid's on my route?
So awesome to see all that artwork and stories. We're kind of getting to the end of our time, trying to wrap this up in about an hour or so. That looks great.
I need fire for him.
Whoa, I didn't even see you carve the face.
Oh yeah, I carved it, but you didn't see like the whole, like every time I did it, like the table
everything shook. Yeah.
Like, it looks like Chicago. Don't be alarmed, people in Canada that watch this or anywhere. Chicago did not have an earthquake today.
So it looks awesome. So to kind of wrap up, I guess, what are you guys working on right now?
Well, being a freelance comic artist, I work on a lot of things for a lot of companies. So I just finished up a story for Neil Gaiman's Norse Gods, what do you call it, adaptation that Dark Horse is putting out. And then another Jim Morrison's story for a thing called Morrison Hotel. And I've been working, and in between those things, I'm working on a new Scary Godmother book. Actually, I have 3 Scary Godmother books that I want to do, but I'm starting with the first one. And so there will be more Scary Godmother stuff. And then I'm also writing a bunch of episodes for hopefully a new Scary Godmother show. With Zeke.
Yep. Jill and I are pitching a new a series. So the original specials were based on Jill's children's books, and so not everybody knows that she also does comics, which are more detailed in terms of their stories and more intricate. So you've got like kind of the hardcover children's books, which are very typical of a kid's book, with big splash pages of paintings, and then very little text and some word balloons, but mostly description, and then more traditional comics.
A couple of them got to be very graphic novel-y. Like I would say, let's see, The Mystery Date,
and The Boo Flu, or
even The Revenge of Jimmy. It may have been The Mystery Date. It may have been The Mystery Date because I had people tell me like, my kid loves these books, but Jesus, I do not want to read this every night. It is so much to read. And I was like,
you're like trying to put your kid to bed, and it takes an hour.
Yeah, point taken. I was like, I will do a rhymey one that is more like a traditional book, and The Boo Flu is big single page illustrations with very little word balloons, only in a couple places, and just like omniscient narrator voice.
Yeah.
That's
so,
right.
But the comics have got like a whole mythology behind them, and all sorts of adventures that go over issues and issues and issues. And so we're developing a TV series that would be, that could tell those stories that wouldn't be necessarily Halloween specific, but more to Scary's world and the people that.
Yeah, they just take place. They take place on the bright side where all the monsters live, and retooling a little bit of. Not the origin, but how Hannah would, work her way over there. And it takes place only on the bright side.
Yeah. So look for that in 2022.
20 something.
Yeah.
What about you,
And what's
Zeke?
everybody doing for Halloween, actually?
Sorry?
What's anybody's Halloween plans right now?
This is it. I mean, is anybody trick-or-treating? Are anybody's kids trick-or-treating? Sounds a little scary. There are a bunch of houses, and I've noticed in Vancouver that have Halloween decorations up and look like they're going to accept trick-or-treaters.
Well,
I think the entire year of 2020 was one big Halloween, I guess.
Yeah, it's one big horror story. I mean, I have Halloween decorations up, and I did get a message in one of the Facebook groups I'm in for my neighborhood, and people were asking who's participating in trick or treat so we can put it on a list so kids will know. And one person down the block says, well, I have a PVC tube out my window, and anytime a kid comes by, I'm just going to throw candy out there, which is interesting. I mean, I suppose I could go do that, but I just don't want to encourage kids to be congregating up and down the street. We usually get a lot of trick-or-treaters, but I buy full-size candy bars, so I know how many cases I go through. It's listed on the side. I get over 100, but there's a neighborhood, a fancier neighborhood down the road from me that usually puts sawhorses off, and people bus in from all other areas. One woman was on TV a couple of years ago saying she goes through 10,000 pieces of candy. And so usually you see hundreds and hundreds of kids on every block all the time in that neighborhood, and they have made it known that they are not doing trick-or-treating. So I don't know, people are just gonna be bussed around, and this year will be a lot of tricks instead of treats because people are gonna be pissed that they can't trick-or-treat. But I don't want to be around that many kids. Even with my mask, and I even have a Scary Godmother mask from like Threadless has my Scary Godmother stripes mask, and I got one of those, but nope. I don't feel
it's gonna be a weird Halloween.
Yeah. So I mean like staying home types of things. Are you doing any kind of incantations or summoning demons or any of that that good horror movie stuff that people just play around with, and then consequences? So.
Gonna watch the Scary Godmother specials backwards and see if we can figure out any demonic messages that the animators put in there.
I think
15 years ago that we never noticed.
We'll definitely watch those.
Definitely, they're now, as well, part of the whole reason for this is that Scary G is on Crave in Canada as of today. So if you are in Canada, you can watch, I just checked, they're both on their website. And
Oh,
yeah, I'm
nice.
not sure when they're going to be there until, but they're there right now.
I mean,
And hopefully next year we can get them on more different places and on Netflix or something too.
So explain, like on Crave, you can just click on Scary Godmother and there it is. It's not on a time like old-timey network television. It's just available on Crave all day today.
Yeah, it's like a
Awesome.
Canadian Netflix kind of thing almost.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's streaming at least through the weekend.
Nice. All right, I wasn't sure. To know that it's on all day is really cool.
Yeah.
So tell all your American fans to VPN into Canada and watch it.
I will say that exact thing. Not knowing how to do that, I will tell
I'll figure it
everybody.
out.
And I know that there's so many people that know how to do that, so I'm sure that'll be fun.
All right,
Exactly.
awesome. So Jill, I guess maybe, I don't know if you want to give us all your social media handles and stuff so people can, I'm sure you have a ton of followers already, but people
Oh my
can see
gosh,
your pumpkin drawings and everything too.
Wait, before we go out, I want to play this song. There's a great band in Chicago called Lever, and they made a Scary Godmother song. I only have. But keep watching.
Is this on TikTok?
It's on my Instagram, and it's on their Instagram. They're Lever, Lever, and they play great grunge music. But here's the part I like best: is the drums are so awesome. This one.
Hey, there's Bugaboo.
Yeah, they just put up all sorts of art as their little video for it. Yep. I love that part.
And did you provide them? Did you work with them, or?
I'm probably holding it to the wrong section. I'm so excited. And they have all of my information up there and not even any of their information. So to answer your question, I am, for most social media, at the Jill Thompson. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's TikTok. And then my Facebook page is just Jill Thompson. I probably have my max friends on that. So the best place to find out information about anything Scary Godmother. I also have one called Scary Godmother's House on Instagram, but follow the Jill Thompson because that's where I post most all information about books I do, art, anything that happens, and my website is thescarygodmother.com, where you can get things like this lovely Scary Godmother fashion doll that I did a Kickstarter for. She's fully postable. Where else can, like, if I'm plugging me, you can also go to my Threadless site and you can get these leggings. They have the Scary Godmother leggings.
Full size, not doll size.
Full size, that's right, full size. They're only in women's sizes, but they run so big. If you want to be Scary Godmother, like drag Scary Godmother, you totally can get them. I'm sure they'll fit you.
Perfect. I'm going to order some after this.
I would like to see you wear them. Climb up a rock and wear them.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks both of you for joining us today. That was really cool to sort of strolling down memory lane and getting some
thanks
new
for putting this
facts
all
and
together.
stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I hope you guys have a great Halloween, and I look forward to more streaming Scary Godmother all over the place.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
Shan.
Good to see you.
All right. Thanks,
Hey.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.